Kia ora, beautiful world. Hello, Madeline Lee here from Ride Your Stigma. I want to come and have a conversation about grieving big changes. All sorts of changes and how they are so natural, that they are a natural process. That grieving is such a natural process that we go through, and that often can feel like we have been taught or learnt that when we grieve, it's negative or bad, shaming our shadows, shaming our tears or our upset emotions, or our hurt, or the feelings of missing people, or abandonment, or the feelings of loss or overwhelm or fear of the unknown. I just feel really, really called to share into this today. So if you are feeling any emotions of grief at the moment, and it's interesting as I say that, I'm like, oh, well, what is grief? What is grief to each and every one of us? Of course, there is a skeleton structure of what grief really is. Like, we all understand that and know that, but at the same time, earlier this year when I was doing the starting of my intuitive healing certification, I wonder if this light needs to go this way a little bit, my intuitive healer certification, we learn all about the grief cycles again, and we definitely do learn about them at school as well, or your bargaining, denial, your kind of anger and frustration, like the denial. I was about to say resentment, but I at the same time I have witnessed emotions of resentment through grief as well. So today I just kind of wanted to come on and talk about grieving and how the changes and feelings of going through grief are huge, and they are such a natural process, because it's like in our conditioning or upbringing or our experiences and the different ways that we have learned in our upbringing and from people surrounding us. So society, our family, our friends, our work colleagues, anyone in our life, any humans in our life that we experience life with, as a whole, generally. Of course, there is a lot more people out there as well that are speaking into it more and shining light on it and normalizing crying and grieving and the feelings of overwhelm and a lot of emotions and upset, depending on who you are, where your tribe is, if you've found a tribe or people that get it and feel aligned with you. But I suppose I'm talking for different versions of myself, that 3 years ago I would have cried and got upset, etc., and I would have felt guilty, like it was bad that I was crying. And even now, like, there's sometimes in my life, if I'm crying or I'm grieving or feeling emotions, and people go, oh no. And it's because we care as well, because we care about that person, because we're like, oh, we don't want that person to feel upset or hurt or abandoned or be grieving and going through pain. But at the same time, it's like showing that empathy, that care and loving, and saying, hey, like, I can see that you're going through a lot of emotion and going through huge things at the moment. What do you need from me? Can I hold space for you? Can I listen to you? Or just even awareness and feeling heard of, I can see that you have a lot of changes happening in your life, that there is a lot going on, that this stuff is huge. You've got a lot on your plate right now. So many things are changing and there's so much navigation and it's really, really big. And I can understand that maybe it's really overwhelming at the moment. All that stuff is huge that you're shifting through, that you're working through. And coming into a more normalization of the grieving process is natural. As humans, we grieve. We grieve when someone passes away that's special in our life, that we've had experiences with and things, because we've grown a attachment to the relationship with them. And there's a lot of, like we could dive really deep. I didn't expect to talk about that, about death or having someone special to us pass away, or like it feels often like a loss, or we've been taught over time that it is a loss. And then you might be going, well, it is, Maddie. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, it's also a release. That it's a release depending on the situation, experiences, the person, the relationship, etc. And sometimes it sets us free and it puts us into calmness, etc. But there is those big, huge, massive emotions and feelings and energy and embodiment that we go through the ups and downs of the grieving process and what we feel. 2 of my best friends are about to move overseas, and they're the ones I see the most, and I am so excited for them. And this is, I suppose, one part of why I wanted to talk about the grieving process is natural today, because I'm so excited for them on their new journey, their new life that they're creating. I'm like, oh my God, it's so exciting. But at the same time, my heart's sinking. I'm like, oh, I'm losing these relationships. I'm like, Maddie, it's okay. I don't want to lose them forever. But it's part of my grieving process that I'm so happy for them, and I don't want them to stay here. I want them to go live their adventure and all these things. But it doesn't mean that I'm not grieving inside, and so many different things are going and coming up for me in this process, and the energy shift and and it kind of a little bit brings up my abandonment wound about myself. And then on top of it, I'm like, but I want to share all these incredible things with these special people that I really, really enjoy. And we grieve it. And there's different types of, maybe different levels and different unique perceptions and ways that we grieve. And every single person grieves in their own way. Of course, we all grieve, and we all grieve. There's like a skeleton of grieving, if that makes sense. But we all grieve in our own pace, in our own time, in our own way. And certain things we grieve more, or hurt more, or feel more tears, or more adapting, take more time. And then we think that we're through the grief, and then it hits us in the face again. And then what else is coming up for me right now, or coming through, is like the grief around, like for me personally, how things like your herpes diagnosis, like we grieve certain parts of it, and then we think we're through it, and then smack bang, it hits us in the face again out of nowhere, and we go, oh, okay. It could be all sorts of grieving. It could be getting a new job. What else do we grieve? We even grieve like our children, like your child going to school for the first time, or going to kindy for the first time. That's another beautiful example of that's a natural way of being. And of course, you're happy for your little one to start going and interacting and being more independent, or going to school, or making new friends. But we also grieve it. It shows us parts of ourselves. It shows us bits of ourselves, our own wounds, our own emotions, our own childhood reflections coming back, and we grieve through it. So today the message is, guys, that whatever you are grieving, we are not bad for grieving. Grieving is a natural space. And if you are finding that you are catching yourself in overwhelming emotions, whether they're overwhelming, they're upset, they're hurt, they're resentful, it's denial, it's anger, or you withdraw yourself. Everyone has a different way of coping and facing and dealing with or navigating our grief. But it's almost like, I suppose, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk in about grieving and how the grieving process is natural today was because I feel like we haven't been taught it enough. I feel like we haven't, like in schools or in our society, we don't talk about it enough, that grieving is natural, because it's really uncomfortable, and most people most of us have almost learned that like grieving is bad, or that, oh no, it's really negative. That means everything's bad because you're crying or you're grieving and it's a loss. And of course there are parts of it that it feels like a loss, but there's also release. There's also release and surrender to the naturalness of life, especially around things like death or passing of special ones, and of different processes of change in life. I was talking about like the children going to school, etc., or like my lovely best friends who are moving overseas and I don't get to see them as much anymore, and things like that. We grieve these things, we grieve changes, and it's natural. And I feel like we don't talk into that enough. And just when something changes like that, or even, so cliche, really typical ones are also relationship breakups. Generally, if you tell another, or they ask something about your partner and you say, oh, well, actually I've parted with them, or I've broken up from a partnership, or I've divorced, or I've, generally people like kind of, oh, I'm so sorry. And we kind of, and I'm not shaming people for that, because it's natural, like we've naturally learned that, but I want us to shine light on that. Maybe asking the person, well, how are you feeling about that? Because maybe it was mutual, maybe it was time, maybe it wasn't toxic, maybe it wasn't, and it was just a grieving process. And of course they're grieving, but it set them free again. Like, it set us free again. It doesn't have to be just a loss. Maybe it's fucking gain, because for 5 years or 6 years or so or something, we've been in a relationship where these two people are really not thriving and it's really holding them back. And it's hard, of course, because you've put in all this love and attention and all of this effort and money and time and love and all of these things. And then we go, oh my God, have I just wasted all this time of my life? But it is a grieving process, but then it sets us free. And then suddenly, like 6 months, a year, 2 years later or so, you go, oh my God, I love my life. I've learned to love myself again, and that person's happy and I'm more happy. And there's actually another side to the coin, if that makes sense. So relationships is one, and then also careers and jobs. That's another one that comes up for me at the moment, is that, like often we, like if someone says that they've lost their job or they've quit their job or they've parted with their job, we often, I find, or I see and experience people go, oh no. Well, maybe it's actually for the openness of opportunity and moving into new parts of yourself. That doesn't mean that the grieving's not there, the grieving's there. But I suppose that the light of it is that grieving is natural, and grieving is everywhere. In every single change that we go through, there is some sort of grieving, whether it's extreme or just subtle. No matter the changes, even moving house, we grieve it because we've got memories there. We've made an energy there. Even if we're moving out of a bad house situation, still there's memories there. There's things, we've got used to it. It's become familiar. And then we move out of a house and then we go somewhere else and we go, oh, this is really big because everything's changing. And I'm stepping into a space where there's unknown. And maybe there's some parts that are known as well. But it's every time we step through change, there is the grieving, and then there is like this open expansion that we don't always know what we're going to step into, but our soul knows, or our universe, or the higher, it knows, and it steps us through it. And I just want to shine light on, if you're grieving through any change, which most of us, I'm thinking now, I'm like, are we all always grieving on some level? Because we're humans and we live in this beautiful space where there is change every single day in our life. And you might go, well, no, I work the same job and I go to the same house and I look after my kids, or I blah, blah, blah. And you say, Maddie, I don't have much change. But there's changes everywhere all the time. We are always changing, and we are moving all the time. There's upgrades and things even on social media and jobs, or even fueling at the petrol station, turning to apps and all of these different things. These are all changes every single day. Or you go to the supermarket, and the supermarket, you think, oh, but I go to the same supermarket and I buy the same foods. Yeah, but they change. Like the labels change and the flavors change, and we're always going through change. And depending on our experiences and our upbringings as well, depending on safety, like safety and security of things, we like the same often. If we've had abandonment, or we've had attachment stuff, or we've gone through some sort of abuse, or just normal experiences that are original to you in your upbringing of some sort, there's been a grieving, and there's so much power in the grieving, if that makes sense, guys. And another one I want to also share that I didn't actually think of here today is grieving around. So I fell pregnant very early in a relationship. Two months into a relationship, I fell pregnant, and then I miscarried over 3 months. And often when I tell people that, the first thing they say is, oh, I'm really sorry, which I love and I appreciate, because they're empathetic and they care, and they're like, that's really hard. Like, I care, I'm here for you. Like, that's something really big you've been through. But sometimes I'm like, well, I love your love and I want your care and I love the empathy. So I don't want them to not say that. But at the same time, I feel everyone's energy is thinking it's really, really negative too. And at the same time as I love and appreciate, and of course I want the empathy, and of course it's huge that we go through that, but at the same time, I trust and know that that little soul was meant to come and then be released again when she was, and that was right for her. She came and shared lessons with me, and then she was released again. So I think also a message today I'm getting is, can we ask people more, how do you feel about that? What are you thinking and feeling about that thing? And allowing people to have the space to tell you, and also just not even tell you, but to register in their mind, in their heart, in their soul, how do I actually feel like that? Before we assume, and then we almost like tell people how they feel about it, or how they should feel about it, if that makes sense. Like really asking them rather than assuming. And this is something I've been learning to do more of myself, is trying to ask, or open the expansion field for asking, how do you feel about that? Or what's coming up for you in this situation right now? And not trying to fix it, not trying to change it, not trying to say that we should or shouldn't feel this certain way, or assuming. That's something that I am very guilty for. At times I will assume because I think that that's how, or I know how I would feel. And then I catch myself and I'm like, okay, that's how I would feel, but I am not them. I am not that person, and every person has a different experience. And how do you feel about it? What's coming up for you? What's coming through for you? Do you want to share anything that's coming up for you in this situation? Or how can I support you right now? Is there any way that I can support you right now? Or would you just like me to listen? Grieving is such a natural process, and we have so much change around us. So I guide you and I encourage you today that if you are, which most of us are, well, we all are, always going through change in your life, and you are having emotions of grief, or emotions that are attached or connected to grief, upset, overwhelm, even the freeness of relief, anything that comes up for you in emotions relating to grief, that it is natural. You are in a grieving process, and stepping into allowing yourself to feel those emotions of grief, that you are not bad, you are not naughty, you are not wrong, you are not depressive, you are not a burden, you are not annoying for being upset or angry or in denial or feeling shame or feeling embarrassed. If you are grieving, and you are not a downer, if you are grieving, if you are crying, if you're feeling all the emotions, or they feel erratic, and one moment you're okay and then the next minute you're falling to pieces, today the message is grieving is natural, guys. And if you are, which many or most of us are, going through change that brings on grief for you at the moment, can you allow yourself to just be in that space? And I want to share with you that you are normal, that it is not abnormal to grieve. It doesn't mean you are crazy or you are silly or any of the judgmental things. It is natural, and it is fucking huge when we are going through change and transformation and shifting, and some of the stuff is out of our control, even though we create it as well at the same time. I love you dearly, and let's pull one card. I did get the cards out to pull one. Let's pull one more card to share with this message today. Trying to get used to allowing yourself to grieve. It's okay to cry, and the release that we get from crying, and you are natural in your humanness through change and through grieving and through all the emotions. And even when it feels like you've passed the grieving and then it's hit you in the face again, it's natural, it's okay for it to hit you again, yeah? No, wait, postpone, pause, say no. So I'm getting the feeling today that it's like, if you need to grieve some more, and if people are telling you to hurry, oh no, I'm getting it. It's like people telling you to hurry up, like, are you over your, hurry up, I'm sick of hearing you grieve or cry, or like, can you hurry up and get over it? It was 3 years ago, or it was 4 weeks ago. Can you hurry up and get over it? That's what I'm kind of hearing right now. No. Say no. I'm grieving. And it's okay to say no. And it's okay to say, actually, this is what I fucking need right now. The crumbling. What are you clinging on to? I've literally pulled this card twice already today. What are you holding on to? Say no. Say no to those things so that you can grieve, so that you can release, so that you can let go, yeah? What are you clinging on to? So saying no, boundaries, and then coming into saying no, so that you can release, so that you can grieve, so that you can feel, so that you can release and let go, so that you can come into openness and expansion for yourself. Next shift, next level, next opening, next surrender to peace and trust. I love you all dearly. Have a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday.